I'm really, really pumped for this topic because it's something that I feel like is interwoven into a lot of what we do, but doesn't get a lot of spotlight time, right? Because it's interwoven into habit building, interwoven into what we are doing here. But sometimes we can kind of miss the gist of things in the haste of life. So today we're going to be talking about how to make your healthy lifestyle permanent and not just another frustrating yo-yo diet attempt, and how we can really facilitate that for you here at PCC so that way you don't have to worry about sliding back in the future. So I want you to think, how many times in the past have you started a health journey to fall back into old habits, regress, and make some progress and then fall backwards? Just show of hands, has that been you in the past? Yeah, everyone. Two hands. And we all know that the problem's not really knowing what to do, maybe like specific small tactical things for sure, but we all kind of know, okay, I should move my body more. I should eat healthier and whole foods. We know these things, but why isn't it happening? It's the integration aspect. And because you're here, I know that your goal is for this to be the last time that you do start the journey. And how we do that is really with one big overarching mindset shift of seeing your habits as changing that from being from a means to an end and becoming a permanent part of your life. So that's what we're going to cover today. The mindset shifts that are necessary for permanent success, the psychology, the brain science behind that lasting change, how to redefine your journey for lifelong health, and then we'll open up for discussion, Q&A, and everyone's individual struggles with that. So that all sound good? Awesome. Okay. So here's what most people do when they're on a health journey. Admittedly, most of us have probably done this in the past. Some of us, asterisks here, might still be doing in small ways. And these are kind of subconscious, under the hood thoughts, but things like, I'll meal prep and exercise at 100% effort until I lose the weight. Or I'll just use macro tracking right now, even though I freaking hate it, and just kind of grit through, white knuckle through. Or my protein goal is so high, I'll just drink a bunch of protein shakes to hit it so I can lose the weight, I can hit the target and get the results that I want. Or it's just too much work to figure out how to track different foods when I'm out, so I won't go out to eat, or I'll bring my food, or I'll just avoid it. Or once I reach my goal, I'll just figure out how to maintain it. It should be easy from there once I get there. Have any of you in past attempts or even in attempts with us ever had these thoughts? Yeah. Yeah, that's okay to admit it. It's really, really common. So I call this, and thoughts like this, the means to an end trap. So looking at our habits like tracking calories, hitting protein goals, getting our 10,000 steps a day, or however many steps a day it is, looking at that as just another chore. For example, when we're stuck in the means to an end trap, here's what it can look like. It can look like at the end of the night, you have all these steps to hit. So you're pacing around your living room, but your work day, you're just kind of sitting at your desk, barely moving throughout the day. Another example is feeling like you have to shove down a bunch of Greek yogurt and protein shakes at the end of the day because you're not getting the protein that you need in with your regular meals throughout the day. Or another example would be avoiding eating out, travel, vacation, social events, because it makes sticking with the plan inconvenient. And the reason why this is a trap, and the reason why this is one big shift that we need to make, is because when the accountability of coaching is removed, the financial component, the person-to-person component, the not wanting to let someone else down component, these habits don't stick because they were never really integrated. We were kind of just smacking them on top of our already high list of responsibilities in daily life without trying to meld them into the habits of our day-to-day living. So what this can lead to is a feeling of we're checking the boxes, forcing it, but it just feels like another full-time job. You might feel like you're easily burnt out from logging and tracking and staying involved in the process. The habits would add to your stress levels instead of actually removing the stress from your life. And a lot of times it leads to feeling like it's just too much work to be healthy. And you revert back to old habits or look for quicker or easier fixes down the road. And I'll say your coach, not here, but elsewhere, we definitely won't do this. But a lot of coaches that I've talked to get frustrated with their clients in situations like this and tell their clients, well, maybe you just don't want it bad enough. And if anyone's ever heard that, it's one of the most discouraging things you can ever hear from a professional in the area. And these things can happen during a coaching experience or after a coaching experience. So maybe this is something that's happened to you, or maybe it's something that you even have some of these kind of red, yellow flags in your experience right now. That's okay. That's why we're addressing it. That's why we have this topic. That's why we're going to talk about it. And the reason why we have the means to an end trap is because there's a gap between habit action and habit integration. So before I move on, is all this just making good sense so far? Just give me a thumbs up or a nod. Okay, perfect. Perfect. And I think Sneha just jumped in. So see when she jumps in. But all right, welcome, Sneha. All right, so we just covered, actually, I'm gonna call someone out here. Does anyone want to share a quick 60-second elevator pitch for what we covered so far so Sneha can get caught up? Any volunteers? Doesn't have to be specific. All right, Shayna's got it. Let's do it.
Okay, so we basically just covered in the last few minutes the thoughts about the means to an end trap, where people on their fitness journeys can sometimes get caught in these short-term thoughts like, oh, I'll do this until I hit my goal, or I'll pace around at night to hit my step goals, or chug all this protein to hit my protein. But when you're doing that, you're just kind of checking the boxes and going through the actions instead of actually integrating these habits. And when you're in this thought trap, the habits feel as if they're adding to your stress rather than integrating into your lifestyle. So we're going to talk about now that gap between what those actions look like versus what it looks like to integrate for long-term success.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that was wonderfully said. I think better than I could have even done. So that is what we've gone up to so far, Sneha. So you're caught up here. And basically, yeah, just feeling like you're burning out from these habits. You feel like it's just too much work. And now we're going to bridge that gap between habit action and habit integration. So what is habit action? I literally made this term up. You won't find this anywhere, I don't think. Like I just made it up as I was throwing this together. But I envision it as you're doing the habits, but you're checking the boxes, but they add more stress. You might have a frequent oscillation on like a week by week basis of like high motivation of like, I'm going to freaking kill this week. And then like the next week, you're just burnt out and resentful of the process. You may also struggle with it will be easier when mentality. So you might kind of throw in the towel and say, you know what, I'm just going to wait for it to get easier so I can go all in with these certain habits. And that can be a perfectionistic mentality. You might also notice that you view these tools, whether it's our app or tracking food or like the different metrics that we weigh or we measure, as restrictive or a nuisance to daily life. And you might understand why the habits work, why they're necessary, but you don't have a deeper understanding of how they might fit into your life for good. And then habit integration on the flip side, what this can look like and feel like is checking the boxes actually saves you more time and energy later in the day and in the week. On habit integration, I like to think of this as if you had to rate the level of effort that you're putting into your fitness goals, you'd probably feel like it's maybe a 6, 7, sometimes you push up to an 8 out of 10, but you're not overwhelmed all the time, right? It's manageable amounts of effort. Another way of looking at it or how it can feel is that you are accepting of your imperfections and failures, and your best is good enough as long as you're just putting efforts forward. Another way that this is you can tell that you're in the integration mindset is if you view tools like tracking food, weighing in, taking measurements, things like that as informative and introspective, meaning you're learning from it and you're learning about yourself through it. And then finally, understanding how these habits can be woven into your lifelong routines. So this is what sustainable change should feel like. And my goal with this little discussion is going to be to help every single one of you move just a little bit over from that action to integration piece, because it's just like everything, it's kind of a spectrum, right? It's a wide spectrum. No one person is all the way on one end or all the way on the other. We have certain areas and habits where we're probably more on the action side, and certain habits and areas where we're on the integration side. So this is going to help you identify that and areas that you can work on. So how to bridge the gap between action and integration. You all have probably seen this before, right? The deep health graphic here. But I'm going to bring this back. We bridge the gap, short answer, by not viewing this journey as separate from the rest of your life. So in the following slides, I have 4 steps that I've outlined, and you're going to see how all these aspects of our deep health integrate into the changes that need to be made. So with that, we have our relational health, which is relationships with our family, our loved ones, our significant other. Existential is having that sense of meaning and purpose in life. It can also extend to spirituality and fulfillment. Mental health, of course, being alert, focused, competent, thoughtful, problem solving, having good mental health as a whole. Our physical health is, primarily what we focus on here, but not 100% of it. And emotional health, experiencing emotions and expressing them, working through them appropriately. And environmental, how our environment shapes our health, our well-being. Does our environment give us friction, or does it actually make it easier for us to reach our goals? One quick, simple example of environmental health is the walking pad. I see Maria's on a walking pad. I'm here on a walking pad, where we've engineered our environment to make it easier and reduce friction for the step count, right? Not a requirement, but just different factors that get into our health. So that's the short answer. So here's the 4 steps that I've come up with for how to bridge that gap between habit action, where it's taking time, energy, stress away from you, and integration, where you're actually growing and learning from it, you're enjoying the process, and it feels sustainable. Mindfulness, behavior, identity, and expectations. So we're going to go through these one at a time. So mindfulness. I would start by just saying, and this is a reminder for everyone, that you all are here for you, not for me, not for PCC, right? This is not about adhering to the program for the sake of the program for a report card. It's about you changing your life. And so mindfulness is a really key piece of being able to embody that. So mindfulness defined is being present and aware of your thoughts, your emotions, your bodily sensations without judgment, paying attention to the current moment, accepting it as it is, rather than getting caught up in the past or the future. And so how does this manifest? How is this related? So the questions you want to ask yourself are you learning about yourself in this process, or are you just checking boxes? So the boxes that you have, let's say a water goal, a protein goal, a step goal, workouts, etc. Are you just checking the boxes, or are you asking yourself wow, what really came up for me when I was struggling with this aspect? Or, when I was doing X, Y, and Z goals or checking this box, what did I learn about what was in my food or things like that? A key indicator of your mindset here is if you notice yourself thinking, am I doing these habits for PCC, for the PCC program that I'm in? Or am I doing these habits for me, right? And just remembering that we are the program, the coaching relationship, we're the vehicle to help you introspect. So we want you to not only check the boxes, but we want you to learn from when you are doing the things. How is that actually reflecting into your life? Another question that you can ask yourself, this is super common, so do not be hard on yourself if this has ever been the case or is the case, but it's really common that we can fall into the trap of treating our check-ins like a report card and thinking like, I need to perform. I had a good week, I had a bad week. So a key indicator is catching yourself when you're typing. If you use language like, I'll perform better next week, it was a good week, it was a bad week. And if you use morality-based language in your check-ins about your performance, that's an indicator that you might be thinking of this like a report card or something you need to perform for versus a reflection on your week. So the check-ins, we as your coaches, we're not grading you, right? We will look at your consistency metrics, but we're not grading you for the sake of grading you. We are starting small with basically just reflecting back to you in your week and using that check-in to find areas that we can improve. So with that, you can start small with mindfulness. Mindfulness is a big, scary word. I think it was for me for a long time. And I thought that it meant that I had to like meditate all the time and like be super zen and all these things. All it really means is to check in with yourself a little bit throughout the day. So instead of rushing through the day and just kind of letting the day pass you by, ask yourself, like, how am I doing? Take one deep breath. What am I thinking about? What state is my body in? Is my heart racing? Am I hot? Am I anxious? Am I antsy? Am I calm? And stop rushing through your day so you can ask yourself those things and figure out what you need at different points in the day. One easy way to start this is just by setting some reminders in your phone that just say like, check in with yourself every couple of hours, and you can ask yourself those questions. So that's number one. Number two is behavior. So the idea here is reducing friction. Now I will say, asterisk, not all behaviors can be integrated super 100% seamlessly. There are areas and things that if we have, dysfunctional habit patterns, behavior patterns, some things might need to be a change in a more abrupt manner, but it's often less than we think. There's a lot of behaviors usually that we can get more integrated into our life without a ton of friction. So for example, instead of obsessing over how do I hit my macros and how do I just add a fiber supplement to my day to get my fiber, or add a protein shake to my day to get my protein, ask yourself, how can I add lean proteins and vegetables to the meals that I'm already cooking for myself or for my family? And this, asterisk here, this requires experimentation, trial and error. It requires basically accepting the fact that you're probably going to fail a couple times along the way before you figure out kind of what your groove is. So us perfectionists don't like that, right? So we try to avoid it. We try to just hit the box no matter what, but embracing that imperfection will be a part of this process. Asking yourself, how can I get movement in naturally throughout my workday instead of just pacing at night or forcing the steps in one way or another? You can ask yourself, instead of staying up super late or waking up super early to get in a workout, sometimes that is the option you need to choose, but ask yourself first, is there time that I already have that I can integrate movement that I enjoy into my day? I actually have a client who, she was on another office hour that I had recently, but a win that she shared was she found some time in front of the TV with her husband. They already watched their favorite show together at this time. Her gym stuff was right in front of the TV, and she paired those habits together. So she didn't have to make more time. She just integrated it with that time and made better use of it. Instead of chugging water right before bed, asking ourselves, how do I integrate drinking water into my day in ways that benefit me instead of taking away? And instead of forcing a TV or screen cutoff time at the end of the day, you could ask yourself, just what do I really need to reduce stress and wind down at the end of the day? So start small here, but with these behaviors that we want to integrate, think of one habit that feels like a chore and start asking yourself, how can it be a little more seamless? Is there a way that I can pair it with something in my day that I already have, or work it into something that I'm already doing? Next up is a heavy one. Okay, so identity. Identity is number 3, and this is confronting hard truths with a growth mindset. So all of this is rooted in growth mindset. Has anybody heard that term, growth mindset, before? Yeah, okay, pretty much everyone. So this growth mindset in a nutshell is the belief that we inherently are capable of change. We are capable of growth, that we are not fixed and we are not stagnant. And all of us have some areas of our life where we are very growth mindset oriented and other areas of our life where we're very fixed and we don't believe that we can change. And so we want to start to challenge that and ask ourselves, how can I start to shift those beliefs? And honestly, research shows that a lot of people say that they have a growth mindset, but when it comes down to it, a lot of us struggle. So it's okay to be just starting fresh here. But you're going to want to start to figure this out. And you will be able to start to tell how you think about these things with the questions that I'm going to ask you next. If you have like a very resistant reaction and your body kind of tenses up when I ask these questions, you might have a more fixed mindset about, how much you can change. But if you kind of, your mind opens up and you just start thinking through it, then it's like, okay, I do have a growth mindset in this area. So pay attention to that. Neither is bad or good, but it just shows you where you are. So identity. The thing about making a permanent change is that a lot of aspects that are tied to our identity likely have to change in order for us to see results for good. So for example, what's an easy one? Anyone ever called themselves a lazy person before? Yeah, everyone. So that could become an identity that we assign to ourselves. And if we continue to call ourselves that through making all these changes, doing all these things, there's an incongruence between our behavior and our identity. Because obviously, if you're losing weight, doing the things, you're not lazy, you're crushing it. But there's that incongruence. And if our identity basically always wins, so whatever we continue to call ourselves, that's what we retreat back to at the end of the day. So we want to make sure that we are aware of those things and we're questioning and changing them. So you want to ask yourself, who is the future version of you who has lost X amount of weight, holds X amount of standards in their life? And how does this future version of me handle stress and overwhelm? How does this person start and end their day? How do they make time for themselves? How do they set and hold boundaries? And it goes beyond, like, this is where it really branches into other areas of our health, because it goes way beyond just what do we put into our mouths and how many steps do we get, right? And so how does this person think? How does this person behave? And so from that, how might the way you choose to talk about yourself, to prioritize yourself and your time need to change? I'll give a couple more examples because these are really deep questions that you're going to want to spend some time with. But I know a lot of people did dry January, and I had a client where this came up and she was kind of exploring, well, what do I want to do in February? And I basically kind of was like, all right, let's zoom out. What do you want your relationship with alcohol to look like in the long haul? Like not just February, but like forever. And what might that change in your relationships, your social choices? Are there habits that you have with your loved ones that you changing this habit for good might cause some friction there or spark a conversation that needs to be had? In addition, how do I navigate conversations with my family around holidays or gatherings? How does this lifestyle change affect how I interact with my partner, my significant other? What traditions or habits do you both have around food that have maybe you've built in the relationship together? And it doesn't need to be I'm cutting this off and we're just going to not do this anymore. But it's about starting those conversations with the people that you love and being collaborative in that conversation and trying to get everybody to win at the end of the day. How is your self-talk? How might that need to change for you to sustain positive momentum after coaching? Because what's coaching? Positive voice in your ear every week. So when it's just you in your head, what do we need to change in order to sustain the momentum there, right? So you don't become the thing that holds yourself back after. So the reality is when it comes to identity, you don't become this person after you reach your goal. You become them today, tomorrow, and as you're going through this process, you have to start showing up as this person, realizing these things, starting to make these changes, and having these conversations with yourself. So that's what the coaches here, the check-ins that we have are for, is facilitating that dialogue as it comes up, because all these things, right, they kind of pop up in little ways throughout the check-ins throughout the weeks. So you don't need to force all these conversations immediately, but it's time to start paying attention to when these things come up. Am I facilitating dialogue around it so that I can start to really make those lasting identity shifts? Lastly, is expectations. So we definitely want to hit a hard reset on expectations. And the hardest hitting piece of permanent change, lasting change, is that the journey probably takes longer than you think. And there's no easy way to put that, but a lot of our most successful clients, or clients that really do kind of graduate and sustain these things for years, are people that have worked with us for a long time on all of these topics, because identity work takes time. Integration takes time, trial, error, failure along the way. And the reality is, if you hired us and you were just perfect the whole time, you're probably not learning as much as if it was kind of messy along the way. And when it's messy, we learn, right? And so that's what it's going to look like. And just expect for that to be the reality of the check-ins, your weeks, and how things go, right? We're looking for consistency, and most people tend to confuse consistency for perfection, when in reality, consistency looks pretty damn messy, but it's pretty good most of the time. And so with that, you're going to want to ask yourself regarding your expectations when you're not hitting your targets perfectly. Am I learning and adapting though? Am I getting back on track faster when I slip up? And am I making small but consistent improvements in my overall lifestyle and mindset, despite what MyFitnessPal, the progress report, the report card says? Are behaviors and thought patterns changing in your actual life and in your actual mind? And that is where we want to really ask ourselves those things on a week by week basis. For example, in the little wins category, when you're looking at wins for the week, this is something that you can ask yourself, even if it was a bad week. So those are the four. As a review: mindfulness, behavior, identity, expectations. So mindfulness, this is about you being introspective with every step of the process. Behavior, having our change be integrative into what we're already doing and modifying what we're already doing instead of just slapping it on top of our long list of things to do. Identity, confronting those hard truths and really changing who we are as needed at the root to become the person that we want to be. And then expectations, giving ourselves grace, knowing that this is a process, and being able to embrace the failures along the way. So with that being said, we're going to go through some reflection questions. I'm happy to jump through any of the slides if anyone needs a refresher, but let's start with this. I would love to know, like, from everyone here, what was kind of like one thing from this topic that really jumped out at you of like, oh, I struggle with that mindset specifically there. Go for it.
When I first started PCC, I was definitely in that habit action space where I would just try to check off the boxes for the amount of water. Like I would chug water at night and I would like pace around the house as well. And then I talked about it with my coach and she's like, well, that's not comfortable, or that's not something that's going to be sustainable in the long run. So we talked about ways to integrate it. And now I feel like I have a way better balance or can do that like throughout the day. So yeah, I think that was an important shift for me, that it's, like you said, not checking off the boxes, but figuring out like how I can make it stick.
Heck yeah. I love that. And that you brought it up, right? You had that dialogue, right? And we're able to find some solutions. Nice. I think I saw Maria unmute too. What about you?
The perfectionist mindset, where I was a 10 overwhelmed when I first started, trying to make sure I had everything perfect, had everything right. And my coach at the time, thank God she could find the humor in my insanity. We had a conversation about it, and she helped me dial back to where I am more of a 6-7, and integrating it more than it being like my sole focus. It's more of incorporating it into the day instead of it being, like you said, tasks or additional things I had to do throughout the day and causing myself the additional stress. So that was a big one for me. When I saw that pop up, I kind of started laughing at myself because I was like, that's for the first like 3 weeks, it was just straight paranoia for me.
Yeah, and that's normal. It's totally normal, but it's why we have these conversations. And, the cool thing though is now you're probably doing all those things and more super consistently at a 6 or 7 perceived effort because you let the slow build happen. And that's what that slow build is all about, because you're not stagnant if you kind of dial back, you're able to build on it. Nice. What else? What were some big like ahas or realizations for y'all?
I'll add something that really hit me. You talked about, now, you and I have worked together for several years, but you talked about um, like making sure that not everything was perfect, and that when you run into those like struggling times, that's when you could really learn about yourself. And I 100% agree about that. The times that I've been through stress at work or, loss in my personal life, those are the times that you and I could really dig into kind of watching for those emotional eating or stress eating patterns. And I think having you there for those challenging times has helped me so much in, being able to deal with those stressful times or unhappy times in the future on my own.
Yeah. Yeah. And it still sticks out to me. I remember there was this one point, I forget what the situation was, but I remember your takeaway from it. It was probably a year or two ago at least, but it was, I'm no longer a stress eater. And I remember that just being like a huge takeaway for an identity shift of like, I'm no longer that person, because my gut reaction when that happened was to go to the freaking gym and get my workout in. So those are some big shift moments that I love and appreciate. Nice. Anything else that stuck out to y'all, like things you struggle with currently or have struggled with in the past?
I'll go. I'm gonna call out the mindfulness piece. I think I was also very similar, like playing off of what Shayna said, like very much kind of checking off the boxes at first and starting to get kind of burned out and like overwhelmed with like, oh, these are things I have to do. But when I really kind of started thinking about, well, how do I feel when I do these things? Like water was always like a huge issue for me. But then I realized, like, I don't know, I feel better, like my digestion's better when I'm drinking water. And so then, when what started as just like checking off the boxes kind of became like, oh, well, now I see the reason behind it and how I can like kind of integrate it more naturally. So, I mean, now I drink water like as soon as I wake up in the morning rather than coffee, which it's not even like a conscious choice. It's just that I'm thirsty, I want water, and then I have coffee. But it's just become like a habit that's been like very integrated now.
I love that reflection because there's like multiple steps in there, right? You had to check the box for a little bit, realize it was stressing you out. Then you checked and said, like, well, like, how do I feel? What are the benefits that I'm actually getting from drinking water? Noticing those differences. And that takes like time, like sitting with like how your body feels over probably days and weeks. So that's incredible because now it's like it feels automatic, but it's because you were able to like rewire that circuit of like, this is the benefit I get from water. So now I really want it in these default moments. So it's amazing. Nice. Any other takeaways? Any other like big ahas for anyone?
Yeah, I have something. I think it was when you were talking about how like you're doing this for you, at the end of the day, when you do your check-ins with your coach, it's like really about you. I feel like this office hours came at a really good time because this last month I've kind of been struggling with like, I guess like my personal motivations in the last month. So it's been kind of hard to like really get on track because I was doing really, really well for a while. And then like I kind of fell off a little, I've been falling off a little bit. So just like reflecting on like every week I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm submitting my thing to my coach. I'm she's going to be really disappointed in me. And like just thinking about like that, I think that the way you said, like, it's about you. And like really at the end of the day, the check-in is because of, sorry, I'm a little bit sick. So this was another thing that got me off track this month. So, um, like thinking about that, the fact that this is about you and what really motivates you and why I signed up for this in the first place. I think I really have to go back and do some reflection on like my identity and like what really is my motivation for going through all this. Because yeah, at the end of the day, when I'm thinking about it, I'm just like, oh my gosh, my motivation right now is really, I don't want to have a bad check-in at the end of the week. So in terms of like sustainability and being able to do this long term, you're right, like why is this important to me is like something definitely I need to like take a step back and reflect on again to like get back to where I was before.
I really appreciate you sharing that. I'm sure it took a lot of guts to speak up on that too. Just like being in it, you're in the thick of it right now, but
Yeah.
that's amazing. It's just an awesome reflection. I'm so glad that this came at a good time because you're right that, being motivated by fear of a bad check-in is definitely going to lead to burnout, right? It's definitely going to not be sustainable. So the fact that you're catching that now and you can ask yourself, okay, why did I want to do this in the first place? How do I want to shift my lifestyle, my behaviors, and how can I utilize the tool of the check-in and these habits to facilitate that? This is awesome. So I can't wait to see what comes of that. And it's going to be a beautiful transformation. Love it. All right. Any other shares? And then we'll move on to the next question after that. All right. Okay. This one's a tough one. But I'm going to ask you guys on the identity piece. So we talked about with your identity, asking yourself, who is the person that has lost the weight, holds the standard, holds the boundaries, handles stress, starts and ends their day, makes time for themselves. So the question I have for you is, what part of your old self do you need to leave behind in order to make this lifestyle more permanent for yourself?
I'll go. Self-doubt. That part of me that constantly doubted that I was able to accomplish anything, because I had failed so many times. That part of me I had to, and I'm going to say it happened more recent. It happened throughout the journey, but I'd say more recently, I really came to terms with the fact that if I didn't fully push out the self-doubt and keep criticizing myself over little things, that I wasn't going to continue to progress the way I needed to. So I think that part of my identity I was able to kind of let go of at this point because I did prove to myself that I can change. It's now just proving to myself I can sustain the change.
That's beautiful. I love that. Something about self-doubt and self-efficacy, a quote that I love. I think it's by like Alex Hormozy, which is like he's like a business like mentor type of guy. But anyways, he said something along the lines of like, if you struggle with self-doubt, if you're not sure you believe that you can do what you're setting out to do, don't rely on the feelings that you're having with that, but look at the stack of proof that you're putting behind you. So for you, Maria, the stack of proof is every box that you have checked, every week that you have seen progress, like, and looking at the objective, like, what are the facts of the situation? The facts of the situation, you clearly are capable because look at the transformation you've had. So then you have to root in that instead of rooting in old thoughts, old feelings. So
Exactly.
nice. Go for it.
I think for me, two things came up. The first one being my old self needs to get rid of excuses because I think I fell back on those a lot to kind of justify not making a change. And then also, my old self needs to leave behind the need for instant gratification because I really was definitely one for the quick fixes and it's like, oh, the 2-week transformation, 2-month transformation. But I feel like this is something for the long haul, like you mentioned, and it does take time, which is hard in like our current society when I feel like everything's kind of given to us right away or we want instant things to happen. So yeah, I think those two things I really need to kind of say goodbye to make the progress I want to see.
I love that. I'm trying to like put these into little labels for y'all. I think for you, Shayna, it would be one label is like how we talk about ourselves in that way is like, oh, I'm an instant gratification kind of person. Like I have trouble sticking with it if I don't see results right away. Like these are things that I often hear from like new clients, prospective clients. So that's like the self-talk catch. If you catch yourself thinking that in any type of way, the reality is, I mean, you're kind of proving yourself wrong right now. So starting to rely on that new evidence. Love that. Annika, I love what you said in the chat. You said feeling like you have to let go of not feeling in control of your life. That's awesome. Do you have anything you want to elaborate on there? No. No, that's beautiful though. That's a big one. What else y'all got for that one?
I feel like everything everybody has said, I'm like, yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. So I can't figure out which is the most important for me. Um, but I think it would be like what Maria said is just the self-doubt. I mean, as you know, I have so many sayings of, I used to say, if I'm not losing, I'm gaining. Well, what is that? I'm setting myself up for failure. So it's stopping that thinking, stopping that, yes, maybe that's what happened for 30, 40 years, but it's not going to happen this time.
Yeah. Yeah. And that self-talk is so powerful. And this is where language becomes very, very powerful. And like it might seem a little nitpicky, or it might seem a little like meticulous to catch yourself when you type or you say these things, but it really does make a difference, because what we tell ourselves that we are, we become. So that's huge. And just, yeah, sometimes like little colloquial sayings that like we've said for years and years and years, like just being intentional to change that. One framework you can use, because a lot of times it's hard to like flip a total 180 on these, is you don't need to completely flip it. Like, let me, just because it's the only one that's written in text, I'll use Annika's as an example of like, I don't feel in control of my life. That's something that she might say to herself, or we might say to ourselves, instead of flipping it 180 and saying like, I feel totally in control of my life. That's kind of bullshit, because we don't feel that way, right? So what we can do there is using a framework such as, the past version of myself has not felt in control of her life, but moving forward, I'm working on finding the areas where I can control certain things in my life. And so it's more so turning it from a finite fixed statement into a growth oriented statement of like, I'm capable of changing, and like, I am working on this. So you don't need to have arrived, but you just want to change the language to, I'm working on this. Is that helpful? Sweet. Any other areas of your old self that you feel like you need to leave behind? Alrighty. Okay, next one would be, what is one health habit that's in your routine right now that is being treated a little bit more like a temporary checklist item or a nuisance that you want to find ways to integrate better into your life? And this is where we can share ideas with each other, because what one person just feels totally at a loss for, another person might have totally figured out. So one thing, one habit that does feel like that nuisance that you want to integrate better.
Working out, because every time my routine changes, I struggle with finding time again to get my workouts in. So knowing that when my daughter's preschool ends and summer hits and she's home 24/7 with me, like that, it gives me anxiety to think about the fact that I have to try and find the time to work out. And I feel like that's always the first thing that falls off for me when I have tried in the past to like lose weight, get in shape. So that's one of the biggest ones that I feel like right now I consistently have been doing it, but without accountability and guidance, I don't know, once the routine changes again, how to stick to it.
Okay. Well, before anyone else chimes in, you've had your routine change already with
And I
this.
didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. It didn't make me happy.
But what did you do? Because you did figure it out. You are training.
Yeah, so because she goes 3 days a week right now for 2 hours, I'm able to drop her off, come home, do a 35-minute workout, and then go pick her up. So that's what we're currently doing. Her preschool, I believe, ends, I think hers actually ends before Memorial Day.
Mhm.
And then she'll be home with me until September when she starts kindergarten. So that's where, like right now, it's working out good where I can drop her off on the days that she is home. I just work out in the playroom with her for the most part, and she's good with that. But the consistency of that, when the root, I finally feel like I got the routine back into place, and now I know in a couple of months it's just gonna be completely changed again.
Yeah, yeah. No, I definitely hear that. And it is, just having to uproot, figure it out again, get settled, uproot, figure it out again, get settled. That's definitely a part of the process. But I think there is evidence that, you have figured out transitions before. And this might be echoing a little bit of that self-doubt of like, I don't know if I can when that time comes. But the reality is you have evidence to show that you have pivoted, you've adapted before, and that's what we want to rely on. But I want to hear some tactical strategies for anyone who feels like shifting schedules, like getting everything kind of in a row. Have you guys ever dealt with that or anything that's helped you in times where you've had to shift your workout schedule?
I'm jealous. If nobody's had to, I'm jealous. I think for me it's having, I like to plan.
Mhm.
So knowing that like right now I can't like get something in place that I know is going to work, I think is where the struggle for me is, because I'm such a planner. It's terrible.
Mhm.
Um, but I do agree with what you said. I think that I've proven I can do it. It did take us a few weeks to really get something kind of hashed out and figured out, but I do think that that little bit of self-doubt is because of the fear of that change again. Um,
Totally.
so
And
yeah,
something I'm noticing in that too is like this is where we are in the future. Like your mind is in the future right
yes,
now versus in the present. And so you're thinking about, okay, well, when that happens, like, and I totally get it because like I actually was, I forget who I was saying it to in a check-in today, but I had something come up that was like very like emotionally charged for me. And I was like, I want to figure this out right now, but I can't because it's a gradual thing that's going to happen all month. And so that sense of urgency. And so I think something that might help you right now is the mindfulness piece, just mindfulness around what are my thoughts, what are my feelings around this, and like what can I do about it right now is like staying consistent right now, continuing to build self-belief right now. And then when that time comes and you have a better idea of what the schedule might look like, then you can really sit down and do that planning. But I think as of right now, it's the emotional management of learning to trust yourself in the now.
yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. Yes, it's going to be future Maria's thing to figure out down the road, not something to figure out right now. If that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. Or maybe just find a good way to like earmark it or like set a reminder that pops up for you in the future of like, hey, don't forget to like plan this out. Like sometime in May, you have a reminder on your phone that pops up. So that
Yeah.
way, like you can close the loop in your mind for now, at least a little bit. Um, and then Annika said she has an EOS membership because they have a kids area at their gym too.
Well, I'm jealous about that too. I think the only thing we have is a Planet Fitness near me,
Oh,
and it's a questionable one at that. We'll put it that way.
gotcha. Yeah. I was gonna say like maybe the R&D of like if there's areas with like kids care, but it
Yeah.
sounds like you're in quite the remote area.
I live in the sticks. Yeah, that's accurate. But no, that's, I mean, it's something to definitely look into, even if it's something where if there's one a little further out somewhere or a gym that does that, it might be worth looking into something like that. So it's a good idea. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, sweet. All right. Any other habits that feel like it can be a nuisance right now and you need a little more support with that?
It's steps for me. I mean, unless anybody else wanted to go, but like it's cold in Chicago, and not only that, like I'm fine, like I can handle some cold, but it's like when it's like icy or snowy outside, it's just kind of not like safe really, to just be trying to walk around and get steps in. So, I mean, I think I need to be better about when I'm like on campus at work, like forcing myself to get up from my desk, and kind of just like walking laps. I don't know if anybody has any other suggestions, but I often do find myself, back home at the end of the night, like pacing my apartment for like the last 2,000 steps or so,
Yeah.
which is not fun. And I don't have space for a walking pad. So I'm gonna nix that idea, but my gym is not very far from me. So I guess that could be an option too. But I don't know. I think like trying to work it in like during my day would be helpful if anybody has any like good strategies for that.
Yeah. Anybody have some strategies for integrating that movement into their workday?
I don't know if this would work for you, but I wake up early. And that kind of came over time, get beyond the why do I have to wake up early to meet your goals. And I just try to get steps, I go kind of laps around my house just so when I start my day, it's not so intimidating that, oh my gosh, I still have 10,000 steps to go. So I don't know if that would help if you have time for that, but that's one thing that has helped me both mentally and physically is to get some done before I even start my day.
Yeah, that's a good thought. Or even like getting to work earlier. My apartment's pretty small, but like getting to work earlier might give me some time to kind of like walk around a little bit more.
Love that.
My my father-in-law works in a hospital, so he frequently like does like the stairs like on his breaks. I don't know if you have
Mhm.
that in your building too. That could be another good way to get steps, little exercise.
That would be a good challenge for me because I hate stairs, but yes, I could definitely use stairs more. That's a good idea.
Yeah. And then we've got a couple suggestions in the chat of like whenever you're like running errands, just like doing a couple extra laps around the place
Yeah.
you go. But I'll actually pull something you said out of the water intake, and I'll
Mhm.
encourage you to do the same thing, which is asking yourself to pay attention over the next couple of weeks as you're getting more steps in. How does it change how you feel? Like, because the reality is forcing yourself to get up and move throughout the workday is like, something you have to force yourself to get into. But if we can rewire the circuit of like, you realize how much of a benefit you gain from it. Maybe it's digestion, maybe it's just fat loss and results, maybe it's energy, maybe it's mental clarity, maybe it's being able to stay focused throughout the workday. But look for what those benefits are for you, because the only way that that habit of like getting up and moving throughout the workday sticks is if we have that reward circuit added in, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Thank you.
of course.
Yeah, and sorry, just real quick,
Yeah.
and going off of what you said, like exactly that is kind of what helps me get my steps in. I've started to notice that now, like if I don't get up every once in a while, like I used to be able to like sit for 8 hours straight and like not even think anything of it, but now I'm like, oh, I kind of feel it in my hips. I
Mhm.
think I need to stand up now. So just like really like paying attention to how your body feels when you've been sitting for a really long time or not really moving around. I feel like it makes you really aware, like, okay, maybe this is my body physically telling me I need to get some
Yeah.
sleep now.
So like paying attention, but also not ignoring it, right? Because
Yeah.
I definitely do that too.
Yeah, because I definitely
That's a
ignored
good
it for a
point.
while. So
Yeah.
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 The mindfulness piece is powerful. And I'll say too, like I definitely resonate with this. Depending on the time in my cycle, I've gotten more in tune with when my cycle's coming and going. And when I'm like prime, like PMS luteal phase, like your girl is ignoring those signals. I'm sitting, my hips hurt, and I'm just like, I can't get up. I can't walk. This is too hard. And then like right now I'm in the first week of my cycle and like I'm just like walking is great. This is easy. So it also fluctuates with that, and the mindfulness there can help you give yourself grace when you need a little bit of grace and push yourself when you know like, hey, there's no additional barriers here. I should just get the walking in. Sweet. All right. I do want to make sure we just tackle Annika saying struggling with logging again. So logging food in our app and our MyFitnessPal, because this is a big one. So I'd love to hear, how have you all integrated this more into your day?
I like to track in advance whenever I can. I mean, it is a burden, but I feel like it kind of removes some of the burden if I kind of just like the night before kind of think about like what I most likely am going to eat the next day. So then even if I have to change some things, the majority at least is like already there, especially like things that are repetitive. Like breakfast tends to like repeat like pretty consistently. Um, I mean it is a challenge, so I hear you. But that would be the one thing I would say is like pre-tracking as much as you can.
Hmm. Yeah, and with that too, it's like that's a reward circuit that takes some time because like everybody who's like a hard on like just super dedicated to pre-tracking, it's because it's like they've had the time to realize like, okay, I actually stress less throughout the day. I think less throughout the day. But like until you get started with it, it's really hard to like force that. So I think give yourself time. Like it's not going to be perfect, but I think if you just practice it, it's like the habit that we all kind of we've been told it, we know it, but have we reflected on within ourselves, like does it improve my day the next day or not? Maybe giving that space to reflect on that a try. Anything else for that one?
Also Annika said about what she doesn't like to do it when she doesn't feel like it's not perfect. Like as a recovering perfectionist, I hear that. But I have found that even if it like doesn't look perfect, even if it's like wildly out of range, like just having the data and like looking at it and being like, okay, like, well, here's where like these excess like calories are coming from, or like excess carbohydrates, or whatever it is that you're kind of trying to, stay on track of. I think it helps, like if you just look at it from like just like a completely objective standpoint of just like this is data you're collecting, and like try not to attach like the emotions or like feelings to it. I think it's easier to like improve from there if you are just consistent with kind of I guess just like accountability with it, and just try not to like have any bad feelings about it.
Mhm. Yeah, because the judgment, self-judgment, when you see what you've logged or something like that. So I will say it here. I'm not judging you or any of you on anything I see in a food log, but a lot of times we judge ourselves, and that's the biggest thing that can kind of get in the way. So objective, being kind to ourselves with that observational lens, I think is an amazing add-on. Thank you, Monica.